Hello, welcome to the AP7 podcast. You are here with Rachel Donovan and the founder of AP7, Mr. George Helou.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you for joining us. We love talking about how to get the heart into everything we do to get a lot out of life.
Whether it be relationships, business, careers, you name it. So, let's get started. How are you today, George?
I'm good, Rach. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
You're really very good.
Yeah, I'm on
finished
holidays.
All your studies.
I'm studying this year, so I'm feeling a massive weight off my shoulders.
Nice.
Incredible, yeah.
And I feel good because I've been very active and my heart rate has been telling me I'm very fit lately. So I'm going to keep up that wonderful motivation.
Oh, that's good, George.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So you ready for our topic today?
Yes.
This one is about having no regrets.
Or suffocating from regrets.
Yeah, absolutely, which is incredibly common. You know, it's something that unfortunately people have all the time, regrets from doing things, regrets from not doing things. And it's something that can really stay with you. Hey, like it's that feeling of it can keep coming up in your head and reminding you of something embarrassed about or angry about or ashamed about.
Guilt.
And that feeling, I think it's one of the worst feelings, actually.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it seems natural to have regrets because we're not perfect. We're going to have made decisions or behaved in a way that we then see consequences where we've either been hurt or we've hurt other people or created situations that have been unfavorable. And we regret because a regret is I didn't want it to be that way. I wanted it to be another way. I wished I acted differently. Now, that means we all should have regrets because no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So really the issue of us talking about regret and exploring it is what do we do about it? I think we need to honor the fact that, yes, we have regrets, but how is it affecting us now? And what can we do about it? Because if it's holding us back, if it's affecting us in ways that keeps us from being better in what we're doing, then what's the point of that? What's the point of being stuck in loops? You know, it's almost like regret loops.
I mean, it's awful, but I think it's really hard to get off that merry-go-round once you're on there of feeling regret. It's a really hard feeling, especially if it's something pretty deep. It's really hard to just sort of accept it and try to change your way that you think about it.
Yeah. Like one of my regrets that probably was quite deep was that I lacked critical thinking for my early part of my life, in my financial part of my life, so that while my passion and want to be with a high work ethic meant that I could create good income, I lacked the critical thinking to look at where I invested it. And as a result, man, you couldn't have fluked as many dud investments as I did. I mean, a monkey pressing multiple choice would have actually done better than me with my investments through my late 20s, early 30s. So I look back and it's a massive difference, Rach, in my net worth portfolio. And so it's easy to be tempted to go, God, if I just did not do that instead of this, that would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars difference in my bank account, that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely know what it's like to have a very annoying kind of regret that keeps playing on your mind.
See, for me, it's like I know quite a few years ago when I was more going out as a younger person, drinking a lot, and there were countless, and I know there'll be people agree, but I mean, still, there's countless times that, you know, I would have drunk too much, done some really silly things, embarrassing things, you know, but like I'm talking even really embarrassing things, like not even just, oh, that's funny, she fell over, like, you know, and at the time you just want to crawl under a rock and die. You just think, oh my gosh, that is so, why did I do that? And it's just an awful feeling. And you just,
Yes.
that was an immaturity thing though, from the most part,
Yes.
unfortunately.
I can relate. Mind you, I loved going out and partying, but for some reason I remembered the night. Like I know some people and friends who don't even remember.
Yeah.
And then they're on the edge the next day thinking, what have I done? Who have I hurt? As in said the wrong things. And so they have anxiety the next day because they've stuffed up enough times in the past to have known that they shouldn't be doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that if you just give yourself permission to have made all those mistakes, then it really isn't about giving yourself a free ticket not to care, because then where's the learning going to come from? I mean, we make mistakes because we're not aware enough. We don't have perspective. We're not tuned into some of the reasons that are going on that we were missing, and therefore misinformed. We made bad decisions, right? So I reckon it's like a gold mine, our past, and that the little regret points are almost like the doors to the gold mine.
Right.
Because who you would be if that happened again, you got to ask yourself, what would I need to know and how would I need to be so that if the same scenario played over again, I wouldn't make the same choices?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way to resolve those situations in your life, so that when you do in your mind and you get excited about, oh, wow, I definitely would do it differently now because I'm aware in this way and that way. I feel very differently about situations like that because of these reasons. So if I was tested again in the same situation, I would make different decisions so that now I'm at peace with that situation, happening in the first place. But Rach, it goes back to the big regrets, really. The ones where you feel like I was referring to financial, where you go, wow, I'd be like $1 million or $2 million ahead by now if I had, and then that kind of is a very disturbing thing to confront, because no matter what you resolve and that you be different, your today's situation is still severely disadvantaged. So it's almost like a slap in the face, everyday reminder that you don't have what you could have had because you were a drop kick back then, And so what do you do with that? And obviously there must be something you can do, because it's crazy to think that, bad luck, you're flawed and you'll forever have to rub your nose in the poo moving forward. It doesn't seem right, does it?
No.
So what's that all about? What can we get out of epic mistakes and the fact that we sure know what the dark side of failure and doing things really wrong and getting really hurt or hurting others, what can we get out of that?
Well, it's lessons, I guess, isn't it?
But the lesson, I mean, I'm sure people go, yeah, but did I have to lose that much to win the lesson? Couldn't we take a zero off the loss?
Yeah.
But the point is, I didn't learn my lesson when I lost a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more and then suddenly 10 times as more. So you got to ask yourself, what was it about what had to happen before you were jolted or shaken by it and you took it seriously? It's interesting because we are stubborn in some ways. We definitely aren't looking for the lessons in a timely manner, and hence because
our habits, I guess, are really habits. We keep doing the same things again.
Yeah, and it's almost like we run this idea that it's an accident, it just happened because it was a fluke. Like the brain can do that.
Really?
And I think it's why we can make the same mistakes over and over and not realize a pattern until that same mistake creates a consequence that's quite traumatic because you've finally hurt someone more than you thought you would, or you lost something that was big and you felt it. But having said that, what do you do with it? Well, one thing I always seem to go to is the depth of contrast it gives you about life. And that, you know, if life was a dark room when you were born and you start to feel your way around it through experiences and then you draw conclusions, right? And that each experience lights up that part of the room so that from now on, you're mindful of that through experience, right? And so you can imagine the older you get, the more experiences you have, the more of the room you see. Well, what if you dodged the heartache, the loss? Do you know what I mean? How can life really turn on for you if most of the room stayed dark and that you somehow narrowly missed the contrast of life being bad so that you then kind of orientate between good and bad? Interesting, huh?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying because life would just be quite flatline, wouldn't it? You don't understand the good stuff.
No. I guess, would you really know love if you didn't know what its absence felt like?
No.
I don't think you would.
No.
So this goes back to that, you know, the philosophy of the human condition is about experiencing all of life.
Yeah.
And the intensity of that contrast, the argument is it adds depth and character to you.
Yeah.
And from a practical sense, wisdom now is you have a finely tuned radar so that the moment you see things unfolding, you're at the depth of what's really going on because you've lived it, like you've really lived it. And I value that, don't you?
I don't think I used to value that. I think that's
I do now.
You're
so shallow, Rachel. You're so glad.
Why?
You're no longer shallow.
No, but I don't think I used to at all because it would be like you just want to be happy all the time. You want things to always go your way.
Yeah.
And it's that things are always meant to be amazing sort of thing. And I guess now, well, being a bit older and having a few things happen and you just begin to see the patterns that have happened, the ups and downs, and it's all part of it. And honestly, I can say it wasn't through a couple of darker periods that the good things did seem a lot better when I came out of it because I really had experienced some deep pain that I hadn't experienced before. And it really gave me that point of reference to appreciate how much the smaller things that were good and not taking them for granted because I really kind of almost lost that. So I definitely see, and so that's why, and it's usually after the painful time, then you can look back and say, well, A, I'm glad I'm through it, and then B, and look what it has taught me and what it's given me because now I'm appreciating things that perhaps I was taking for granted or always expecting life to be amazing. And so realizing that contrast is what makes life so beautiful or so amazing because without that, I think that's when people are searching for things because to fill them because they're not experiencing the ups and downs. You just sort of, I don't know, what have you got? Saying, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you reminded me when you were saying that not that long ago, I wrote a blog article called Our Depression. So yours, mine, all of us, because I wanted to show that it's natural to get depressed because some things are not fun. Some things are not good and that they could bring you down. You could actually feel deflated and withdrawn and that's natural. And the extreme of that is that, yes, you can get stuck in it and you don't know how to get out of it. And now it's not even about your conscious logic of what's going on. It's the habit of staying withdrawn, and then they can label that clinical depression. But once you understand neuroscience, you'll understand why that happens, and the very process that got you stuck can actually get you out. That's my strong theory that I've witnessed with people actually shaking it loose, right? But because it's stubborn, then the labels and the medication can be a legitimate coping mechanism. I get that. But it's definitely treatable in the process of why do we change? You with me? So anyway, when I wrote this article, what I did was I went through my life because I wanted to understand what was it about me embracing feeling down and not freaking out, you know, and that, you know, because I always like help people who are down, but they're complicating it. Like they don't actually honor the fact they're down. So I said, you know what I do when I'm down? I don't give a f. And what that really means is this. I just allow myself to be down, and I choose not to pressure myself to be always up. And by removing those crazy layers out of the way, these distractions and the pressure, I get clearer. I get clearer about why I'm down. I get clearer as to what is it about the way I was being that contributed to the problem. And then I give myself permission to go, well, I don't think I want to be that anymore. And then I'm able to move into a way of being that is a growth for me. But I had to honor the fact that the way I was being was creating situations that brought me down. But look at this. It's like, oh, I'm down. Oh, I'm failing. Quick. Force yourself up. Force yourself to be productive. Get busy. Get distracted. Put on the music loud. Like, my goodness. It's like we're not honoring the fact that we're beautiful human beings that are supposed to have a balance between going for it and then stepping back, withdrawing and going, what did I like? What didn't I? And what is it about what I didn't like that I can be different to address it? We don't seem to be raised in society to have that beautiful relationship with how to take on life, you know, dip in, dip out, and then go in, evolved, and collect the new experiences. So with regrets, it's like we have an opportunity to play the lowlights, right? Because the regrets are the lowlights. Play the lowlights and start doing what we should have been doing ongoing.
Yeah.
You know, start going, okay, so what was it about that regret that the way I was being made me be that way? And then once you get those insights,
it's really important to ask those questions though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But then what would really make the regret dissolve is that you're honoring the depth of character that you now have, the level of genuine, authentic compassion for other people who are caught in that way of being because you've lived it. You know how painful it is. You know that it's easy to be trapped in that way of thinking. That's genuine compassion, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So then when people don't feel judged, what happens when you're building genuine empathy with them and demonstrating that you really do know what it was like, because you quickly give them, you know, a scenario or two where you actually lived where they're caught. What happens to them? Well, I know what happens to me when people are like that for me. I feel at peace, at ease. I feel like I can open up. I feel understood. Suddenly I'm not alone. I feel connected. Isn't that the optimal state of mind to embrace the learning? It is.
Yeah.
You know, so being there for each other, if you undo your regrets and give yourself permission to have journey, then your emotional intelligence is going to go to a whole new level. And what does emotional intelligence do for your life? You want meaningful relationships? You want to feel like the population of the world is your family, and that even a stranger now you can identify with their journey, their individual journey, and that we're all in it together. I mean, it's a beautiful attitude to have because suddenly you're living the oneness that everybody wants for the world. You're doing it because you don't see people as, oh, you know, they're a threat. Who, I don't know what they're like. Should I trust them? Shouldn't I? You know, instead you're seeing that, look, that person's on a journey and I don't need to know the specifics of that journey. And if I'm meant to, I'll enjoy finding out in the sharing, but it's a nice initial way to relate to those around you, that real kind of, we're all in it together. So how is that going to happen if you can't relate with making your mistakes and getting your bruises? And so that way, when you go to relate, you've got all those reference points that give you that understanding of the similarities and maybe then get interested and curious about the differences.
Yeah.
So should we have regrets?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But when you have a regret and you acknowledge that you have a regret, all you're really saying is, if I had my time again, I'd do it differently.
Yeah.
But do I now feel the emotional charge of regret where I'm not happy now because that happened, moving to the next moment? That's just downright crazy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the difference is. You're allowed to say you regret, but what about moving forward? What do you want to do with it?
It's like that Japanese art form, kuntsukuroi, which is the pottery or bowls that are broken and then they're put together again with gold and things. And the idea is that that piece of art is actually now more beautiful with all the broken cracks and everything that have been put together, and it's more beautiful than it was originally. And
I agree with it. In other words, I personally feel the love for that artwork with all those gold-filled cracks because it talks to me. It tells me that it has lived a life of mishaps and love.
Yeah.
You know, where people used it so much. There was interactivity. There was probably overzealous joy, dropping it, breaking it. Then the care and love to put it back together, honoring it for what it is and for it to continue to live on. Like, and what about us? You know, we talk about, you know, Brene Brown's vulnerability and that really is a strength. That's because the difference between someone talking in a pained, emotional position, they haven't gold-lined the cracks. They're still bleeding out of those cracks, and that's not attractive. In other words, I'm going to talk from a place where I haven't owned what hurts me. My regrets own me. That's almost like an energy suck vortex that you're in, right? That's simply not attractive. But when you can talk about the same things from a place where you've made peace with it, you've understood what it was all about, why it happened to you, how you are now the type of person that you would deal with it differently, then your tone is different, isn't it? The way you talk about it, you own it. Isn't the same metaphor of the gold-filled cracks? Aren't you that artwork in the way you carry yourself? Isn't that more endearing? Isn't that more attractive when someone talks about their past from a place where it doesn't own them, but it included the warts as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
I find that I am more attracted to people, and I find people connect to me more when I am talking and they are sharing from that place where we stuffed up and made these mistakes and and it's like, wow, because what it says is that you are so connected to your personal worth and you are so able to be truly present in the moment because nothing in your past hijacks your attention and pulls you down. you've mined the gold out of all the regret points, all the gold mines. You've mined it and you've expanded from it. So all the things apparently that we were supposed to regret and supposed to be an anchor on our vessel, suddenly it's a wind in our sail because we're more compassionate, we're wiser, we have greater perspective. Our depth of character means we know more of what's going on around us and we have more value because of that. So, wow, I'm starting to really like regrets. What about you?
Well, to be honest, when you put it like that, it does sound quite good.
I should get a business card. I'm a regret salesman.
But I mean, really what you're selling is not to do things that you're going to regret. Actually, when it happens.
No. It's a good thing you put that disclaimer. We could get in serious trouble. That bloody EP7 podcast, well, they told me do stuff, collect regrets, make regrets happen because they're the best for you. Yes. No, thank you, Rachel. You saved us with that clever disclaimer because you just never know. Someone's just getting too literal on us and
taking it wrong. Yes. He's given me the ticket, like you said, to go out and create trouble.
It's like slap. Oh, why did you slap me? Because I wanted to do something I'd regret.
Well, thank you, George. Thank you very much for a wonderful discussion. Great conversation.
Oh, it's been a pleasure sharing with you and watching you kind of relate and share your own wisdom with that. It's been great.
Well, we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us on the AP7 podcast.
Happy regretting.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on another AP7 podcast. If you liked what you heard, remember to share and subscribe so you're notified of every podcast released. If you have any questions or would like to connect with us, please jump on the EP7 official Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you.